Tell me what you know about the monster.
Say, come on, kid, let's go outside. Let's toss him.
On Plymouth Island, Captain Dill sails his boat Serenity every day, hoping to catch a legendary tuna named Justice. His obsession with this fish is so intense that it starts interfering with his business. When Justice finally takes the bait, Dill ignores the tourists who've paid for a fishing trip and tries to catch the fish himself, refusing to listen to his loyal sailor, Duke. One morning, things go too far. Dill, desperate to reel in the fish, threatens tourists with a knife when they try to take the rod from him. They leave, refusing to pay for the trip. In the end, Justice escapes, and Dill is left empty-handed. Meanwhile, Reed, a local man, watches the whole scene from the shore. He's desperate to speak to Dill, so he crosses the water in a suit, hoping to get closer. But despite his efforts, Dill doesn't notice him. The tourists leave, and Duke is concerned they won't get paid. But Dill has a plan. He visits his friend Constance, who lends him the money he needs after a fun time together. Dill takes the opportunity to ask about her son, as he's considering firing Duke and replacing him with someone else. Afterward, Dill heads to Jack's bar for a drink, then returns to pay Duke. Dill asks Duke to join him the next morning, but this time they won't be taking clients. They're going after Justice. Duke warns Dill that it's irresponsible to waste gas on a personal trip when they're low on cash, but Dill insists they have to go after Justice because it's close. That night, Dill goes home and drinks, talking to the memory of his son. He apologizes for failing to catch Justice again, remembering the days he spent fishing with his son, Patrick. Meanwhile, Patrick is at his mother's home, looking through old pictures of Dill and reminiscing about the past. The next morning, Dill drives his truck to the docks, but once again, Reed watches him from a passing bus, unable to catch his attention. Dill and Duke head out on their trip, but once again, they don't even catch a glimpse of Justice. When they return to the island, Dill angrily accuses Duke of bringing him bad luck ever since his wife died. Duke is fired and leaves, unaware that Constance is watching the whole thing from her window. Later, Dill goes to Jack's bar, where Jack suggests he should see a therapist. Dill, as usual, brushes off the advice. Their conversation is interrupted by a sudden visit from Karen, Dill's ex-wife, whom he hasn't seen in years. She calls him John and asks to speak with him privately. Dill takes Karen to his boat, and she admits that her new husband has become violent, hitting her and their son, Patrick. Karen wants Dill's help. She wants to organize a fishing trip on Dill's boat, but with a dark plan. She's willing to pay $10 million if Dill can get her husband drunk and throw him to the sharks. Dill is shocked and kicks Karen out, refusing to even consider her request. He sails away, not noticing Reed, who is running towards the shore and once again missing him. The next morning, Dill returns with a large haul of fish to sell at the market, but Constance is waiting for him. She presses him for more details about Karen, but Dill remains tight-lipped and heads out for a swim. While in the ocean, Dill begins hearing strange voices, Karen's husband yelling at her, and Patrick calling for him to do something. Dill sees Patrick swimming with him, but when he reaches out to him, he wakes up at the kitchen table, feeling shaken. At the same time, Patrick, in his room, notices some spilled water on his desk and feels a strange sense of connection. That day, Karen's husband, Frank, arrives on the island. He immediately joins Karen at their hotel room and starts inspecting her, complaining about a scratch on her leg. When he finds it, he takes off his belt to punish her. Meanwhile, Dill visits Lois's fishing store to pay what he owes and buy new hooks. Lois mentions that everyone on the island knows about Frank's abusive behavior and that Reed is looking for him, but Dill doesn't seem to care. When Dill gets to his boat, Frank and Karen are already there. Frank demands that Dill take him fishing, complaining that Dill is refusing his business. Dill turns him down, saying that it's against the regulations to take tourists without a sailor. But Frank, determined, tells Dill he'll return the next day with the money and his gun. Dill, uninterested, goes out to sea, hoping to catch Justice. As usual, Reed arrives too late to catch Dill, but notices a strange discrepancy in his schedule, realizing something is off. Dill doesn't find Justice, but does manage to catch enough fish to sell at the market. That evening, he spends time with Constance, who urges him to choose between saving Karen or chasing after the fish in his head. Later, Dill is approached by Duke, who has heard the rumors about Frank's willingness to pay $10 million for the fishing trip. Duke reminds Dill that they desperately need the money. His boat needs repairs and his grandson needs help. Duke also reveals that he knows Dill fired him out of pity, which hurts him. This is their chance to make things right, so Dill agrees to take Frank out under one condition. Duke has to keep an eye on him to prevent Dill from giving in to temptation. The next morning, Dill and Duke head to the docks, where Frank and Karen are already waiting. Dill talks to Karen in private, telling her that he'll only take Frank fishing and nothing else. But Karen tries to change his mind, telling him how Frank hurts Patrick. Dill had always kept to himself, but life on Plymouth Island was beginning to feel more like a game than reality. Karen, his old love, tried to convince him to kill her husband, Frank, but Dill was hesitant. He was already carrying too much weight from his past. His mind forever scarred from the war, his marriage lost, and a new world he could hardly understand. He couldn't escape the feeling that everything around him, from the island to the people, was part of a larger game. And it was all somehow connected to his son, Patrick. Patrick was different. He lived in his own world, glued to his computer, and Dill was sure there was something more to him than just a kid obsessed with video games. He'd heard Patrick's voice in his mind, and it made him question everything. One day while fishing with Frank and Duke, Frank started rambling about his stepson, Patrick. He called Patrick creepy for never coming out to play sports, blaming the boy's obsession with computers. Frank even suspected Patrick was involved in illegal activity on the dark web. But the truth was much simpler. Patrick was just playing a fishing game. But Frank, with his temper, didn't understand. He even threatened to kill Dill if he didn't catch a fish, but Dill wasn't intimidated. He finished Frank's sentence in a calm, collected manner, surprising himself. During the trip, Frank slipped while trying to reel in a shark. Dill and Duke helped him out, avoiding temptation to let Frank fall into the water. But when they returned, Karen was waiting. She was disappointed, and while Frank went off to wash up, she tried to convince Dill to help her again. She revealed that Patrick wanted justice, that it was Patrick's idea to have Frank killed and that their son needed Dill to do this. Duke overheard the conversation, but before it could go any further, Frank returned and whisked Karen away. The tension between Dill and Karen grew. A storm brewed in the distance, and Reed, a mysterious man at the docks, seemed to know everything about him. Reed told Dill that he wasn't just some fisherman. He was part of something much bigger, something controlled by rules that Dill couldn't understand. He offered Dill a sonic fish finder as a trial, something that would supposedly help him catch the fish he needed. But it wasn't just any fish. It was a metaphor for something more dangerous. The rules of the island, Reed claimed, were changing, and Dill was part of that change. Reed's cryptic talk about the island being a game haunted Dill. He felt like a pawn in a game he didn't know how to play. He spent the night thinking, reflecting on his life and his lost connection with his son. Patrick, who seemed to have created this game, had trapped him here on the island, manipulating him to kill Frank. But Dill wasn't sure he could go through with it. Dill began to doubt everything around him. Was he crazy, or was the island real? Reed, it seemed, was a player in this game, and the rules were clear. Catch the fish, but don't kill the man. But Dill wasn't sure he could follow those rules. He was already too far gone, tangled up in his own emotions and memories. He tried to talk to Patrick, wondering if his son had truly created all of this. But the more he spoke, the more confused he became. When Dill finally visited Lois, she gave him some lures that Reed had dropped. She didn't know what was going on, but Dill kept asking her strange, philosophical questions. He tried calling Reed's company to confirm his existence, but quickly hung up after leaving a message of thanks. Dill's head was spinning, and he was sure the island was changing him in ways he couldn't control. Meanwhile, Karen was determined to see her plan through. She patched up Frank's wounds and gave him alcohol to numb the pain, convincing him that he was strong enough to go fishing. But Frank, weakened and drunk, was no match for the shark they were about to catch. Dill, ever the reluctant participant, found himself facing a choice. Would he let Frank go, or would he do what Karen wanted? In the end, Dill chose the fish. He handed the rod to Frank, who, in his drunken state, couldn't handle the shark. The fish took Frank into the water, and it seemed like an accident, just what Karen had wanted. But as Frank screamed for help, Patrick, back in his room, picked up his father's knife, his hands stained with blood. The media exploded with news of Frank's death. Karen told the world it was self-defense, that Patrick had killed Frank to protect her. Patrick, however, had withdrawn into himself, refusing to speak or acknowledge what had happened. He had killed Frank, but it was as if he didn't fully understand what he had done. Dill, now fully immersed in the chaos, realized that this was all Patrick's doing. Patrick had created the game, trapped him in this twisted reality, and manipulated him into killing Frank. But there was more to the story. Patrick wanted his father back, and he had used the island, the game, and the people around him to make that happen. In the end, Dill understood that he and Patrick were both broken in different ways. They were both victims of the island's rules, victims of the game. But as Dill stood at the phone booth, hearing Patrick's voice on the other end, he knew something had changed. Patrick was ready to reunite with him, to change the game once and for all. And so, father and son finally reunited, ready to fish together once more, the game now complete. The island's rules had shifted, and in the end, Dill had caught the fish, and perhaps, in some strange way, he had caught his son's love again. And it's easy for you to catch a nice story, my friend. Just click on the recommendations on the right and enjoy the ride. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for future uploads. And now, as always, grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon, my friend.